Good evening. I am Lady Isabella, daughter of the 3rd Earl of Lower Ormond. I spend my days quietly, as befitting a young lady. I love the rose garden. Recently I have taken to having tea with Mother and her friends in the south-facing drawing room. I love the gossip. I like to read poetry. My tutor says that I must have knowledge of literature and art, essential in spouse hunting, apparently. I have a fondness for horses. The best part of the day is my morning ride, which I am obliged to take with my ladies in waiting. I am permitted to trot or canter only. They constantly ignore my pleas for a good gallop. Most unbecoming, it would seem. Tomorrow evening is my coming-of-age ball. I have to say that I'm quite excited. Preparations are coming along quite nicely. There is great activity. The tables have already been laid. The crystal gleams and the silver twinkles. Apparently, I am the catch of the county. My figure is good. I am healthy and strong. But I shall be judged by the greatest accomplishment of all, man I marry. However, I have little say in this matter. My poetry and books espouse marriage for love, but that sadly is mostly for the lower classes. Tomorrow evening I must sit beside a boring old duke and charm him, for he has a very eligible son. This son is not a boy, but a man of 30 years. We have met at evening soirees and the such. He seems agreeable enough. A tad old, though. I am but 17. Why must I be betrothed so soon? Mother says that as soon as I am promised, I shall have daily lessons in running a household and managing servants. Can you imagine anything more boring? Alas, such is my fate. But I worry little. Mother has taught me a few little tricks.
The year is 1860, and my name is Padre O'Donnell. I used to work for a local landlord round these parts, minding the pigs. I'd be good with pigs. Sure, my father and his father before him kept pigs. They were meat for the family. Pigs is good business. But when Rosie, our youngest, was about a year old, I had an accident and nearly lost the arm. I may as well have lost it for all the use it is now. But I lost my job, and all we had was a half-acre of spuds. And we watched them go black in the ground in front of our eyes. Oh God, we were hungry. There's nothing will break a man's heart more than watching his wife and kids starve. And as if things weren't bad enough, the RIC came one day then and knocked our bit of an old house. There we were, out on the side of the road. Nobody to take us in. And then I made the worst decision of my life. I opted for the workhouse. But there was no other way. But what I didn't count on was the cruelty of that place. They separated us all. I only saw Agnes and the kids once in a blue moon. And what bet Agnes altogether was when they took Rosie away and she only 2 years of age. and they put her in a big room with all the other babbies. I tell you, young pigs would be treated better. They never did tell us what Rosie died of. And sure, that finished Agnes. They let her see the other kids out of mercy. The thinness of them frightened the life out of her. She gave up after that. She died in an old heap of straw. Heap of old bones is all she was. But at least the other kids have been looked after. And I don't have to worry. The authorities paid for their passage to America. I miss them something terrible. But they're doing okay. I do get the odd letter. I'll tell you, I was in the workhouse a long time. I thought I'd be buried in the place. But you'll never guess what happened a couple of months ago. A nephew of mine got me a position with the local Church of Ireland rector. I do odd jobs around the house, and I keep the vegetable garden in good order. And there's a lovely flower garden there too. And on a fine day, I'll sit under the oak tree there, and I'll think about things. As it turns out, I'm a very lucky man.
I am Mrs. Patmore, and I'm the head cook here. Cook and bake, it's all I seem to do. But in honesty, I don't have it too bad. I started here when I was 16 years of age. My job was to wash the pots and pans, polish the cutlery, and scrub until my poor hands were raw. I'll never forget the day the old cook got sick, and I chanced making the bread. God, my heart was in my mouth though. But it turned out grand. After that, I'd done the baking every day. After that, I got a little bit more responsibilities. I'll never forget the day I prepared all the food for a hunting party of 25. The old cook had taken to the sherry. She said it was medicinal for her arthritis, you know. I know I couldn't let her down. She'd been very good to me all over the years. Well, it wasn't always like that. I started work when I was 12 years of age in a farmhouse over the road. The Pike is what it's called. I'm sure some of you know it. The woman of the house said I had a great flair for the cooking. She said it was good to flavour a thing. Well, if you came from a family of 11 kids and they all had steps of stairs, you'd make a dinner out of nothing. Ah well, I'm the old cook now. But I still rule the roost, don't you worry. I have a couple of young ones there now that do the donkey work. But they couldn't make a sauce to save their lives. Now, young Lucy there, now she's got the makings of a good cook. Anyway, you should see the way they look at the footman. When I was a young girl, I had a fancy for a lad by the name of John James O'Brien. Ah well, that never came of it. I never married. I took the name Mrs. Patmore for respectability. I haven't long more now to work in this place, but I have a little bit saved. Enough to buy a little house on my brother's land. And there, with the help of God, I intend to spend the rest of my days.
Hi, I'm Sarah Clark. I'm 20 and in my second year of college studying history and English literature. My interest in history began in national school when the teacher asked us to do a family tree. To use my parents' phrase, we're comfortable. My dad, Seamus, works for an insurance company and Mum, Siobhan, works with Google. We live at a nice house on the Ballymakeegan Road and can afford to get whatever is needed. Life was not always like this. Those who came before us worked like slaves for the basics. Mum and Dad remind me regularly about how lucky we are. They say to never sit on my laurels and wait for miracles. Do you ever wonder where we all came from? I've done a lot of research on my family history. My dad's great-grandparents worked for the Burkas of Burda, Maine. She was a chambermaid and he was the estate manager. Having jobs such as these, they were held in high regard. They had a nice cottage on the estate. But did they work? 14-hour days were the norm back then, and if the De Burkas were hosting a hunting party or a dinner party, the servants hardly saw the bed at all. My dad remembers a story going back years and years. His great-grandmother, who lived to a ripe old age, took great pride in regaling the family and neighbours about a distant relative who was a lady's maid to a Lady Isabella, an earl's daughter, circa mid-1700s. Her name was Elizabeth Howard. She even accompanied Isabella to her new home when she married. The story goes that Elizabeth was a great horsewoman, and later, when she married a neighbouring farmer by the name of O'Donnell, she would take the workhorse when the mood took her and gallop the ditches and drains in the neighbouring fields. In later generations, a branch of the O'Donnells fell in hard times and ended up in the workhouse. My mother says her only claim to fame is that some great aunt of hers worked as a head cook on some estate. She never married, but took the name of a married woman for respectability's sake. Maybe that's where she got her cooking skills, and the kitchen is always sparkling. And here I am. I have a summer job working in a hotel cleaning the bedrooms. I hate it, with a vengeance. The pay is terrible and the hours are long, but I don't mind, because it's temporary. During my breaks, I find a nice quiet spot on the estate and read the old poets. It takes my mind off things. My mum says it's a good job I've brains. Yes, learning comes easily to me, and I hope it helps me to achieve my ambitions. We are all a part of history, and I wonder what it is life has to offer me.